The machine room held the day's heat long after the river outside went black. He'd lived inside the bridge machinery for 2 weeks now, and the men who ran the span had no idea he was down there. He is up and moving before the key finishes turning in the lock above. The whistle is still going out on the river, the tug leaning on it, flat and insistent, and he already understands what the whistle means for the machine he sleeps inside. This is a swing bridge. It does not lift, it turns. The whole span, roadway and railing and all, is balanced on a great center pier out in the middle of the river. And when a tow needs to pass, the operator throws the drive, and the span rotates a quarter turn until it lies parallel with the current, opening the channel on either side. And the thing that turns it is the bull gear, the huge iron ring, wider than a wagon wheel, laid flat around the pivot with a pinion the size of his own head meshing into its teeth. And he has been sleeping in the crook of that gear for 14 nights. When the pinion drives, the bull gear turns, and everything wedged against it turns too, or is dragged under it. He gets clear of the crook. Low and fast, the way the dog taught him without meaning to, he slides out from between the gear and the wall into the narrow service alley behind the drive motor, into the dead space where the machinery does not reach, and he pulls the wool blanket and the milk crate in after him so there is nothing left in the crook to say a person lived there. The dog is already ahead of him, pressed flat against the far wall, silent, its eyes catching the one bulb's light. It has done this before. So has he, above them. Boots come down the machine room stairs. He does not breathe until he knows the boots. There is only one man who comes down at this hour, and after 2 weeks he knows him by his tread, the way you know a song, by its opening bar. An older man, heavy on the right foot, unhurried, even with a tug whistling for him. A man who has swung this bridge for so many years that the emergency has gone out of it. He crosses the machine room and throws the switches in an order. The boy could now throw them himself, and the machinery comes awake around the 2 hidden figures in the service alley, like a thing stretching after sleep. First, the end lifts. This is the part most people never think about, the part the boy did not understand until he lived here. A swing span cannot just start turning. When it is closed, it is jacked down hard onto the rest piers at each bank so that trucks and their loads can cross without the span sagging the end. Wedges driven home under the span ends, taking the live load, making the bridge stiff. Before it can swing, those wedges have to be pulled, and the span ends lifted clear, so the whole thing floats free on its center bearing, balanced, weightless, 100 tons resting on a single greased point at the pivot. He hears the wedge machinery run a hard mechanical grinding, then a series of heavy clunks as the ends come up, and he feels the character of the whole structure change around him, the stiff bridge going suddenly light and live, ready to move. Then the drive. The motor takes up its load with a rising whine. The pinion bites into the bull gear a few feet from his head, and the span begins to turn. He has felt it a dozen times now, and it still stops his breath. The whole world rotates. Not fast, a swing span turns with enormous, patient dignity, a quarter circle in 90 seconds, but the machine room turns with it, because the machine room is built into the span itself, out over the pivot, and so the boy and the dog and the drive motor and the great grinding bull gear all swing together out over the black water. It is the strangest sensation he has ever lived with, and he has never gotten used to it. The floor beneath him is dead solid, not shaking, not tilting, and yet through the plating gap the entire world slides sideways. the whole town coming unmoored and drifting past, so that his body insists he is still, and his eyes insist he is moving, and the two arguments meet somewhere in his stomach. The center bearing takes it all to a single greased point at the pivot, carrying 100 tons of iron and roadway and boy and dog in a slow, effortless circle. The rim rollers out at the edges of the span, murmuring along their circular track to keep it level. He has laid his hand flat on the pivot housing during a swing once, to feel the whole balanced weight of the bridge turning on that one point, and the smoothness of it had frightened him more than any roughness could have. Through a gap in the plating, he can see the bank lights wheel slowly past, the town sliding sideways, the river opening below as the span comes off its closed line and lies down along the current. The grease smell thickens with the work. The pinion throws a fine mist of it he can taste. He holds the dog against him. It does not need holding, but he needs to hold something, and he rides the bridge around the way he has learned to ride it. And out on the river, the tug pushes its long, low string of barges through the opened channel past the nose of the pivot pier, close enough that he could hit it with a stone if there were any point in throwing one. Then the whole thing runs in reverse. The span swings back onto its closed line. The end lifts drive down. The wedges ram home under the span ends with 4 hard concussions he feels in his spine, and the bridge is stiff again, a road again, carrying nothing at this hour but the weight of itself. The motor winds down. The old man throws his switches in reverse order and climbs the stairs, and the machine room is his again. And the boys and the dogs. He waits until the tread is gone. Then he pulls the milk crate and the blanket back into the crook of the bull gear and lies down in the warmth the machinery has left, and he is smiling in the dark, and he could not entirely tell you why. Here is the thing everyone got wrong about him. Back where he came from, they thought he left because he had to. He did not. He left because he decided to, and the difference is the whole of him. He came from a mining town up in the hills, one of those places built around a single reason that stops being a reason. When the mine closed, the town did the thing those towns do. It did not die all at once. It emptied slowly, a house at a time, the young ones first, and then the families, and finally, the old ones who had sworn they never would. He had watched it go. He had watched them come and board the storefronts and cut the power to the streetlights, one block at a time, watched the men from the company and the men from the county move through and make lists and tell people, kindly, with clipboards, where they would have to go now. Everyone he knew got moved along, got relocated, got resettled somewhere a form said they belonged, and he had understood, standing in the last lit window on a dark street, that being moved along was a thing he would rather die than accept that he would go where he chose, or he would go nowhere. But he would not be a name a stranger with a clipboard wrote in a box. He remembers the last month of the town better than he wants to. He remembers the sound of it, mostly because a town empties by sound before it empties by sight. First the mine whistle stops, the one that had cut the day into shifts for 100 years, and the silence where it used to be is the loudest thing anyone ever heard. Then the school bell stops. Then, one by one, the screen doors stop slapping, the dogs stop barking in the yards, the radios stop playing through the summer windows, until a street that had made noise since before his grandfather was born makes none, and you can stand in the middle of it at noon and hear the wind in the wires, and nothing else. He had stood in it. He had listened to his town become a held breath. And he remembers the men who came to manage the emptiness, not cruel men. That was the strange part. Courteous men, with lanyards and folders, who spoke gently and meant well, and were, in the end, the enemy, because their gentleness was the gentleness of people closing a thing down. They had a place for everyone. That was their horror. Wherever you were supposed to go, they had already decided, and the decision was on a form, and the form was kind, and there was no arguing with the kindness that had already filled in your name. So he had walked out under his own power, down out of the hills, before anyone could put him on a list, with a harmonica in his pocket that he no longer played out loud, and nothing else he wanted to keep. The harmonica had been his grandfather's, and his grandfather had worked the mine 40 years, and played that harmonica on the porch every night of theirs, and it was the one thing the boy took, because it was the one thing the company and the county had no form for. It was not property. It was not a resource. It was a small tin thing that made a sound, and the sound belonged to a porch that no longer existed, and he carried it the way you carry a grudge you have decided to keep. He does not play it aloud in the machine room because sound carries, and he will not be found. But some nights he cups it in his hands under the blanket and breathes through it so softly that even the dog only lifts one ear, and the note is barely a note, and it is enough. The dog is why he found the bridge at all, and the dog is why he stays. It had come to him in the rain, 3 days out from the hills, a rangy, rust-colored stray with a torn ear and a way of looking at a person sideways, weighing them. It had not begged. It had simply fallen into step with him on a wet road as if they had agreed on something. And when the rain came hard, it had led him, there is no other word, it had gone ahead and looked back, and gone ahead again off the road, and down an embankment, and along the river to a low bridge with a door standing open at its base into a warm, dry room full of sleeping iron. The dog knew the room already. He never learned how. It had a corner it went to, behind the drive motor, as if it had wintered there before, and he had made his own corner in the crook of the bull gear, and the two of them had kept a wary distance for a night and a day, and then stopped keeping it. He tells himself the dog is why he stays. It is not the whole truth. The whole truth is that the machine room is the first place, since the hills, that no one has told him he does not belong in, and he means to keep it exactly as long as he decides to, and not one day less. That is the defiance under all of it. Everyone he ever knew moved along. He is going to be the one who stays. So he learns the bridge the way he learned nothing in school, because he chose it. He learns the Taos. He learns that they run by the river, and the river runs by things he cannot see, the rain up in the watershed, the depth over the shoals downstream, the great slow business of commerce that sends a coal tow up at 1 hour and a grain tow down at another. He cannot get a schedule. There is no schedule to get. So he builds one out of whistles. He learns to tell a tug's size by its whistle, learns which tows are too big and low to slip under the closed span and must call for the swing, and which small craft pass under without a sound. He learns the old operator's rhythm, the shifts, the changeover, the long dead hours after midnight when nothing runs, and the machine room is as still as the inside of a stopped watch. He learns, above all, the 90 seconds of the exact sequence of wedge pull and end lift and drive. That means the world is about to turn, so that no whistle will ever again catch him asleep in the crook of a gear that is about to move. He gets good at it. He gets proud of it in the private way of a person who has no one to be proud in front of. And pride, he will find, is a thing the river charges you for, The days take on a shape, and the shape is made of the machine. Morning light comes through the high, grimy window of the machine room in a single slanting bar that crosses the floor and climbs the flank of the bull gear, and, for about 20 minutes, lights the old iron up gold along its teeth, and he has come to wait for that bar the way a man waits for a face. He knows the room now, by heart and by hand, the cold of the plating on the north wall, the warmth that lives longest in the drive motor housing, the smell of the place, which is grease over iron, over river damp, a smell that got into his clothes in the first week, and that he has stopped being able to smell at all, except when he comes in from outside. He keeps the room the way you keep a thing you mean to defend. He hides his gear so well each morning that he sometimes has trouble finding it himself. He learns which floor plates ring underfoot and which are silent, and he walks the silent ones out of habit even when he is alone. The dog keeps its own hours. It goes out at dawn along the riverbank on business the boy is not privy to, and comes back by mid-morning, and in the long empty afternoons the two of them lie in the crook of the gear in the gold bar of light, and the boy thinks about nothing, which after the hills is a kind of luxury. He realizes one afternoon, with something close to alarm, almost happy. He has trained himself not to trust in happiness. Almost happy is the feeling you have right before someone with a clipboard tells you where you have to go. The first time the schedule betrays him, it is not the schedule's fault. It is foggy. It comes up off the river before dawn and fills the low ground, and it does to the whistles what deep water does to a dropped coin, swallows them, muffles them, steals their direction. He wakes in the crook of the gear to a whistle that is already close, too close, its edges eaten by the fog, so that he cannot tell whether it is the big grain tow that needs the swing or a small boat that will pass clean under. He lies still, straining, and the dog is up beside him, ears working, and neither of them can read it. And then the machine room door opens above, and the boots come down early, off shift, a whistle, having called the old man in ahead of his hour, and the boy realizes he has miscounted for the first time in 2 weeks. That the 90 seconds have already started while he lay there trying to hear through the fog that the wedges are being pulled right now. He goes for the service alley in the dark, and the dog goes with him, and they make it, barely, the end lifts grinding, the span already going light beneath them. But it is close. It is closer than it has ever been, and lying in the alley, while the bridge swings out over the invisible river, he understands the flaw in his pride. He had been reading the world through one sense, through the whistles alone, and the fog had taken that sense away and left him deaf inside a machine that does not care whether he can hear it. He decides, in the swinging dark, that he will never trust the whistles alone again, that he will read the bridge through the floor, through the grease smell, through the dog's ears, through every channel he has, and cross-check them so that no fog can ever again make him deaf in the one place he has chosen to stay. It is a good decision. It will not be enough, because the next danger is not a thing he can read. At all, it is a thing that reads him. It comes on a bright, still afternoon, the kind he has stopped guarding against, because the fog is what taught him to fear the dawn, and he has let the daylight lull him. A tow comes up mid-afternoon, whistling clean and clear, no fog to eat its edges, and he reads it easily. Big grain string needs the swing, and he takes the dog into the service alley with time to spare, unhurried, almost bored. A man who has done this 30 times. The wedges pull. The end lifts run. The span goes light and begins to turn. the town wheeling slowly past the plating gap, and he settles in to ride it out, and the dog will not settle. Something is wrong with it today, the heat, or a smell off the river, or one of the private weathers of an animal, and where it has always ridden, the swing pressed flat and silent. Today it is up on its feet in the narrow alley, hackles lifting, a low sound starting in its chest, that is not quite a growl, but is on its way to becoming one. The boy gets a hand on it. The sound keeps building, and through the plating gap, as the span swings past the pivot pier, he sees why. A work skiff is tied at the base of the pier, and a man is standing in it not 30 feet away. A lineman or an inspector doing something at the water line, and the dog has locked onto him, and in about 2 seconds it is going to bark, and a bark from inside a supposedly empty machine room will carry across still water like a shot. He does the only thing there is time to do. He pulls the dog against his chest, hard, and wraps his whole body around it, and puts his mouth against the torn ear, and breathes not words. He has no words, just breath, slow and warm. The same breath he puts into the harmonica in the dark, the one steadying thing he owns. The dog shudders against him. The growl climbs to the very edge of sound. The span swings its slow, patient quarter turn, with the man in the skiff sliding past the gap, close enough that the boy can see the tools in his hands, and the boy holds his breath and the dog's silence together in his arms, and does not know, second to second, which of them will break first. The dog holds. The span completes its turn. The tow slides through. The man in the skiff never once looks up, and the bridge swings back and rams down onto its wedges. And only then, in the stiff, safe dark, does the boy let go and find that his arms are shaking, and the dog is licking his jaw, as if to apologize for a thing it cannot know it almost did. He had thought the danger was the machine. He had thought the danger was the fog, the whistle, the schedule. He had never once thought the danger might be the one living thing in the room he loved, that the cost of keeping the dog might be the dog itself, giving him away. It is the first time staying has asked him to risk something he was not willing to lose, and it will not be the last. It is a man with a clipboard. He hears about it before he sees it, the way he hears about everything, through the structure. 2 sets of footsteps on the machine room stairs one afternoon, when there is no tow, no whistle, no reason for the old operator's heavy right-footed tread, and beside it a lighter, brisker one. A stranger's, a walker, who has never worked this bridge and does not love it. The boy takes the dog into the service alley and makes them both into nothing, and he listens. And what he hears turns his blood to river water. The stranger is from the county. He is doing a survey, the bridge. He is explaining to the old operator, in the flat, cheerful voice of a man reading from a form, is old the machinery original, the bull gear cast before anyone now living was born, and the county is weighing whether to automate the swing, or replace the span, or close it to river traffic altogether and fix it shut. He is here to make a list. He walks the machine room making his list, and his brisk feet come close to the service alley, close enough that the boy can see the crease of his trousers and the clipboard against his thigh, and the boy holds the dog's muzzle gently shut and does not breathe, and the man stops and looks at the crook of the bull gear where a milk crate did not quite get pulled all the way back, and makes a note. Then the two of them go up the stairs, and the boy sits in the alley with his heart going and understands that the thing he fled the hills to escape has followed him down the river. Men with clipboards. Men who move things along. The mine, the town, and now the bridge. Everything he touches, it seems, ends up on a stranger's list, weighed and found to be in the way, that is the night he nearly leaves. He sits in the crook of the gear with the harmonica cupped in his hands, and thinks about the road, the way he always thinks about the road when a place starts to close. He is good at the road. The road has never once put him on a list. He could be gone by morning, dog and all, another warm room somewhere downriver, and let the county have its bridge and its survey and its automated swing. That is the sensible move. That is the move that has kept him free. But the defiance sets its heels, the way it sets them in the last lit window of a dying town. He is tired of being moved along. He is tired of it in a way that has gone past sense into something harder and more permanent. Everyone he ever knew got up when a stranger with a clipboard told them to. He is not going to be the last one who does. He does not know yet what staying will cost him, and he does not care. And the not caring is the truest thing about him. He puts the harmonica to his lips under the blanket and breathes through it, barely a note, the note off a porch that does not exist anymore, and the dog lifts one ear and settles. And he decides he is staying. Let the county come. The human turn, when it comes, is not the one he braced for. It is a week later, deep in a dead midnight hour, no tow on the river, and he has grown careless in his defiance. He is sitting up in the crook of the gear in the light of the one bulb, actually playing the harmonica, low but aloud, because 2 weeks of silence had become 3, and a man can only hold a note behind his teeth for so long. He does not hear the old operator come down. There is no tow, no whistle, no reason. The man has simply come down, the way a man will, to sit with a machine he has loved for 30 years in the quiet of a night shift. And so the two of them are suddenly looking at each other across the machine room, the old man on the bottom stair, the boy frozen with the harmonica at his lips, the dog on its feet between them with its torn ear back. Nobody moves. The boy waits for the thing he has waited for his whole life, the clipboard voice, the "you can't be here," the moving along. It does not come. The old man looks at him for a long moment, and then he looks at the dog, and something crosses his face that is not a surprise recognition. He knows the dog. The boy sees it plainly. The old man knows the rust-colored stray with the torn ear, has known it longer than the boy has, and the dog knows him, its tail moving now, low and uncertain. The old man does not say much. What he says quietly, and the boy will turn it over for a long time after, that the dog used to belong to the last man who lived down here, that the boy is not the first to make a home in the machine room, and will not be the first the county tries to move along, and that the old man has spent 30 years learning exactly what he is, and is not required to notice on his own bridge. I don't come down here after midnight, never have. Whatever's down here after midnight is none of mine. Then he climbs the stairs, heavy on the right foot, and leaves the boy his home. The boy sits a long time in the light of the one bulb after the tread is gone, the harmonica still in his hand, and turns the thing over and cannot get to the bottom of it. He had braced his whole life for the clipboard voice, and the clipboard voice had not come. Instead, an old man had looked at a stray dog and a runaway in the guts of his bridge and made a quiet, deliberate choice to unsee them, had spent 30 years, he'd said, learning exactly what he was required to notice, which meant he had also learned and kept the freedom of what he could decline to. It is the first kindness the boy has been handed since the hills that did not come with a form attached, and it undoes something in him precisely because it asks for nothing. The men with the folders had been kind too, but their kindness had a place for him in it. This kindness has no place for him in it at all. It simply leaves the place he has already chosen alone, which is the only kindness he has ever wanted and the one he had stopped believing existed. He understands, sitting there, that he is not as alone in his defiance as he had thought, that somewhere above him, a man who could move him, along with a single phone call, has instead decided, night after night, not to. That the last man who lived down here left the dog behind and the old man kept the secret of it for years. He is one in a line, then. The machine room has sheltered runaways before, and the operator has looked away before, and the bridge and the man have been quietly conspiring to keep a home for strays long before the boy ever followed one in from the rain. It does not make him less defiant. It makes his defiance feel, for the first time, like something other than being alone against the world, like being one more in a long, unspoken company of people who would not be moved. Winter comes to the river, and the machine room shows him a new face of itself. The heat it had held so long into the autumn nights gives out, and the cold comes up off the water and into the iron, and the bull gear becomes a thing too cold to touch with a bare hand. The grease stiffens. He can hear the difference in a swing, the machinery working harder against its own thickened blood, the motor whining longer before the span will move. Frost draws itself in ferns across the high window, and the gold morning bar comes thinner and later and colder. He learns the machine room's winter warmths the way he learned its summer ones. The drive motor throws heat when it runs and holds it a while after, so he learns the tow schedule not just to hide from the swings, but to be near the motor in the hour after one, curled with the dog in the ebbing warmth of a machine that has just done its work. He stuffs the service alley with river grass and feed sacks lifted from a barge landing. He and the dog sleep closer, for the plain animal economy of it. Two warm things keeping a third thing, the cold, at bay. It is a hard season, and he would not trade it. Every cold night he does not get moved along is a night he has won. He thinks sometimes of the courteous men with the folders, of where they might have sent him, of the warm, dry official, somewhere with his name in a box, and he pulls the frozen blanket tighter over himself and the dog in the crook of 100-year-old gear. And he is, in the only way that has ever mattered to him, free. The survey does not automate the bridge that year, or the next. These things move slowly, the way big machines and county budgets move slowly. And the boy learns to live inside that slowness the way he learned to live inside the 90 seconds. He keeps his corner in the crook of the bull gear. He keeps the dog. He plays the harmonica, low in the dead hours when he knows, now, that the one man who might hear him has decided not to come down. He reads the bridge through every sense he owns, and no fog catches him again, and no whistle finds him asleep. He is not safe. He will never be safe. Safety is a thing that happens to people on lists, but he is home, and he chose it. And he stayed, and for a boy who watched a whole town get moved along, that is the entire victory, the only one he ever wanted. He does not know how long it will last. That is not the kind of thing his life comes with. But some nights, late, when the river is empty, and the span lies stiff and closed on its wedges, and the great bull gear sleeps in the dark, he cups his grandfather's harmonica in his hands and plays the porch that isn't there anymore, low for the dog and the machine and no one else, and once, only once, he thinks he hears it, from up on the roadway, through the plating, above the water and the wind, the faint sound of a man's boots stopping on the closed span in the middle of the night to listen, heavy on the right foot, standing a while and then going on.